What's up, Will? Hey, everybody, welcome to, I guess, a special episode, a story of the fight. It's outside of our normal schedule, but we decided to hop on. You hit me up when you're like, we got to talk about this,
We
right?
gotta do it.
There's a lot of drama. Before we get going into it, just want to let everybody know, Story of the Fight, podcast where we cover everything combat sports, which is what we're going to be talking about right now.
Yeah.
But if you like, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. That way, whenever we do anything random like this, you get notified.
You know right away.
Yeah, you can also find us on social media.
Yeah, it's at Story of the Fight on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Reddit, YouTube, Twitch, everywhere.
We're also on Spotify, Breaker Podcast, Radio Public, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Anchor FM, anywhere podcasts are found. Now that we got that out of the way,
Let's just get it out of the way.
what is going on right now? So, the press conference was supposed to happen last night, right? Then all these
supposed
crazy reports start
Shout out
going
Ruben.
out. Hey, what's up, Ruben? All these crazy reports start coming out, talking about there's a little, altercation in the back.
The biggest, never seen anything like it before in my life, is what some of the
Been
reporters
doing
were
this
saying.
for 20-something years, and never has anything like this ever happened.
Yeah.
And then you have Ariel Helwani that's dropping this big news. Word on the streets is that this is big brawl that broke out, and all hell broke loose.
Yeah.
So you're like, what is going on? Because nobody's giving details.
Yeah, and then they cancel the press conference.
Because it's the smart thing to do.
Because it's the smart thing. It's just getting out of hand. And then
it's getting out of hand.
No videos surfaced. There's some videos of Darren Till and Kevin Holland talking to each other, and Kevin Holland's talking some shit, and Darren Till's like, "Have I not been respectful? Have I not been respectful?" and then they like. So there's really nothing concrete about what's happening, and then Ariel. If I trust anybody on stuff like this, it's Ariel right now, because he's the only person willing to actually like. He doesn't care what the UFC thinks. Yeah, he doesn't care if he says something that pisses the UFC off, right? So he's like, so here's what happened. Per Ariel, he says that, so they're backstage getting ready for the press conference, all this stuff. Kevin Holland and Khamzat are talking shit to each other like they have been in the past. They're in each other's face. Yeah, they're talking shit. Khamzat hits him with that Rick James front kick to the body. Checks him.
Yeah.
And then Tiki, of all people, OG Tiki, knocked out, said he never got knocked out, but got knocked out. Longtime buddy with the Diaz brothers, former manager, all that stuff, right? He breaks up that altercation. And I was like, whoa, Tiki, normally we would have thought that you would be jumping into the altercation.
Throwing blows himself.
Yeah, but instead he separates it. And we're like, okay, we're cooling down a little bit. And then Nate Diaz's camp sees Tiki chatting it up with Khamzat, and they're like, what the fuck? Like, fuck you, dude. So they chuck a bottle or something like that. Khamzat starts talking shit. A couple bottles go flying. They separate it.
Classic Diaz camp.
Yeah. And the press conference is getting too out of hand. Never seen anything like it before in my life. So pretty overblown. Didn't seem like that.
Sounds like it.
Kevin Holland got a little front kick to the chest from Khamzat. A couple bottles were thrown.
Hey, that's a normal Friday night for Kevin Holland.
Yeah, exactly.
Normal Thursday night.
Yeah. Catch him
not
at
a big deal
event, he's tossing bottles.
So you have that. And then I think you couple that with the fact that maybe the card, there's not too much excitement. So being able to say
the opposite,
this is the craziest thing that's ever happened, bringing more attention to it. Everybody says that Dana White's a marketing genius. And then it starts blowing over a little bit. You're like, okay, whatever. And then today, you start seeing notifications pop up again.
Ooh.
Left and right.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be working. I'm supposed to be working. It's 8:30. People are like, rumor is Khamzat's 10 pounds over. I'm like, what? He's only got 2 hours. He's going to cut 10 pounds in 2 hours? Seems impossible. And it was. And yeah. And then all of a sudden, Ariel's like, UFC's looking for replacement fights just in case he misses weight. And we don't think, and they don't think that he's gonna make weight. And everyone's like, okay, this is kind of a situation here. Shout out math prodigy. Dana White is pretty great to
marketing
be honest.
Genius.
I mean,
marketing genius.
right? He built it. It's crazy. Yeah, credit where credit's due. So they're like, "What's happening? Is Khamzat, if he misses weight, are they canceling the fight?" He weighs in with like 5 minutes left. He walks in all nonchalant, steps on the scale, shrugs a little bit. They read 178.5, and he had to hit 171. Gives the old
7.5 pounds
flex,
over.
nothing like flexing after missing weight by 10 pounds. And then
looks ripped, by the way, still.
Looks like a middleweight almost. And then he bounces. And and then like, what's happening? What's going to happen here? And then they're like, is Nate going to take the fight? Probably not. Does he pop in and do they make the Tony fight maybe that everybody wished happened in the first place? What happens if to the Leech? Then all this stuff, right? Shout out Math Prodigy. If you aren't subscribed, definitely subscribe. That would be tight. We appreciate it. Ruben says you weren't even trying if you're that far off. And we'll go into
So what were those reports you were saying that somebody had posted something about Khamzat's whereabouts the night before?
Remember that little girl that would always she's at like every event and she wears the Habib hat and she like takes pictures with all the fighters. She's always wearing the Habib hat. She's everywhere. She got to interview a couple fighters one time because the UFC was like,
are you talking about the old lady?
No. She's like 9 or 10.
Oh, definitely not the same person I'm thinking about then.
Yeah, she's like 9 or 10. I don't know. I don't remember what her name is. Her name is like Mini Habib or something like that on Instagram or something. But she's at like every event. She posts a picture with Khamzat. She's like from the night before or something, talking about how, I saw him Khamzat at the restaurant last night, and he was there for a couple hours, drinking sparkling water and eating for hours. And I was kind of worried about the weight cut, but obviously, like, not gonna say anything. And then we're like, what the fuck? And he showed up on Tuesday. DC said he showed up on Tuesday, like 20 pounds over, which is doable. Not great, but doable, right? But looks like he didn't try, like Ruben said. Didn't try. Kind of hilarious, but whatever. And so then there's the rumors, right? Oh, is Nate going to fight Tony? Because they're both at 170 now. They both made weight for 170. This is the fight that should have happened in the first place because they're both old and both 155 pounders. Probably should just do that. Makes sense. But then Dustin Poirier posts a picture of a scale at 176. And he's like, I could do it. And then it's like, whoa, is Dustin Poirier going to jump in this? What's happening? And then there's just rumors after rumors.
Oh, my God.
Ariel says that the UFC reached out to Dustin and he accepted the fight. And they said, hold on, we'll see. We'll let you know. Had the private jet on the ready, fly him out. And then all of a sudden, Daniel Rodriguez has accepted a fight against Li Jingliang. We're like, whoa, okay, but it's still on the leash to accept that fight. So we're like, maybe. But if that happens, then what about Tony? Because Tony's supposed to fight the leech. And like, well, then that makes sense that he would be fighting Nate. And then, but then what about Kevin Holland? If D-Rod's fighting the leech, what's Kevin Holland going to do? And they're like, does he fight Khamzat? No way they would reward Khamzat for missing weight by 10 pounds when he's supposed to headline a pay-per-view.
By the way, not getting fined now.
Yeah, not getting fined because ultimately the way it all shakes out is Nate Diaz will take on Tony Ferguson at 170 for the main event, 5 rounds. Khamzat Chimaev will take on Kevin Holland at a catchweight bout of 180 because kind of weird. Kevin Holland was supposed to fight D-Rod at 180 for a catchweight fight, so he weighed in at 180, and Khamzat weighed in at 178.5. So that kind of works out perfectly weight-wise. Kind of weird that they had a catchweight at the same weight that Khamzat missed for. Conspiracy theory, maybe. Who knows? But so that's a 5-round co-main event, and then we got the Leech versus Daniel Rodriguez. Shout out to the unsung hero of this card, the Leech,
which is
for taking that fight.
Because if you wouldn't have, now we're probably thinking Dustin Poirier.
Maybe, but also let's not forget that Nate and Tony both weighed in at 170. Nate weighed in at 171. I don't know, but Tony made weight for 170. Khamzat is only a pound and a half under what Kevin Holland weighed in at. But D-Rod was fighting at 180, a catchweight bout against Kevin Holland. The Leech weighed in at 170 to fight Tony. So he's, out of everybody, he's going up against somebody who weighed in 10 pounds higher. So shout out to the Leech for taking that fight.
For sure.
His manager, Tim Simpson, posted about, he said that they offered it to him. And what did he say? He said, let's see. But don't get it twisted. Only one of them is fighting a guy at 10 pounds heavier. And then in quotes, no problem. The Leech, man. A shout out to Math Prodigy. Everybody like this video, please. Goes a long way.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Math Prodigy.
That.
Really appreciate it, man. No, so that's huge, right? And the reason that I say it too, just because going into this, like we mentioned earlier, there wasn't too much hype for this card. And like me, for example,
negative hype.
Yeah, going into this, you have Nate Diaz, last fight on his contract. There's news coming out as to why it's the last fight and why he didn't re-sign a different contract. Fighting for his team, a couple of other things like that. And so they throw Khamzat Chimaev, who is young, too big for Nate Diaz. Expectation is that he's going to steamroll Nate. They're trying to build Khamzat's name off of Nate Diaz, and trying to make sure that they diminish his stock before he leaves the UFC.
Yeah, you're about to get me heated, bro.
But right? And then so the co-main event was who before that?
Co-main was Tony versus the Leech.
So it's a decent matchup. It'd be a fun fight, right? Tony Ferguson versus the Leech. No. I think it'd be a fun fight. Li Jingliang's a very exciting fighter. Tony Ferguson's going to throw down to the very end. You know, so it would have made for a fun fight. Maybe you don't get to see the result that you want to see.
Here's my issue with that. And right on cue, George says, "Let it out, Will. Tell us how you really feel." So here's how I really feel about this whole situation. You already said about how about the Nate and Khamzat matchup, how that matches up. But it's similar. It's similar with Tony. Tony doesn't need to be fighting a killer like the Leech at 170 when Tony's a lightweight, also at the end of his career, which I believe what's the streak that Tony's on right now? And spoiler alert, it's not a good one. It's not a good streak. You know, when you think of Tony Ferguson and streaks, you think about the crazy 8 or 9 fight win streak, whatever, before he ever even got a shot at the belt. But he's on a 4-fight loss streak right now. And we look at those losses, and it's Justin Gaethje, one of the worst beatdowns I've ever seen. Charlie Olives, complete dismantling, destroyed his elbow in it. Beneil Dariush grappled him and whatever. Michael Chandler knocked him out the front kick, and it was devastating. I think it's the only time Tony's been out like that. So we have a guy like that who is at the end of his career. You look at those results, you're at the end of your career, regardless of what you've done in the past. And same thing, his body, he doesn't want to cut weight to 155 anymore because his body, it's old, man. It's battered. It's the same reason Nate doesn't want to cut to 155.
A lot of miles, man. A lot of miles.
So what do we do for Tony? Do we give him a step down in competition? Probably. But instead they go, no, you're going to fight the Leech, who's a damn savage, just knocked out Santiago Ponzinibbio at a weight class where you're going to be undersized. So it's like, it's the same thing, man. They always try to do this. They capitalize on veterans because they have a name. They're at the end of the career. Let's just keep giving them killers to capitalize off of their name. And then the most disingenuous thing about the whole thing was Dana being like, oh, Nate Diaz asked for this fight. He asked for Chimaev. And then 2 days ago or yesterday, or whatever it was, Nate says in an interview, I didn't ask for this fight. I asked for Tony. I asked for so-and-so. I asked for this fight. And then we're like, what are we doing then if Tony and Nate are in the same card where stylistically it's a great matchup? If this is all about entertainment, that's a better matchup than the Leech versus Tony, and it's a better matchup than Khamzat versus Nate. It's better for the fans in terms of styles. And then they're both undersized welterweights. They're both lightweights fighting at 170 because they don't want to cut weight. They're both at the end of their careers. They're both old. They're both haggard. Their bodies don't work the same. This is the fight to make. And then it turns out they're on the same card, and it's a fight that Nate asked for. What the fuck are we doing? And here's what the UFC is doing. Like you said, the UFC is saying, oh, we're going to have Nate asked for this fight because he's a real G or whatever. Dana's trying to act all fucking ridiculous. He's like, Nate's a real G. He asked for Khamzat because he doesn't want easy fights, all this shit. Last fight in his contract. The reality is they're giving Nate a matchup. The list is endless on why this is a bad matchup. Nate's 50 years old. Khamzat's a killer. He's 20. It's obviously his hyperbole, but Nate's not in his prime. Khamzat's in his prime physically. Nate matches up the worst against pressure wrestlers. Khamzat is a pressure wrestler. He's a Chechen wrestler. That's what he's best at. So stylistically, worst type of matchup for Nate. On top of that, Nate is a 155 pounder fighting at 170 against a guy who has fought at 185 and is coming down to 170. And so not only stylistically is it terrible for Nate, right? Because he can't fight wrestlers like this, but on top of the style matchup, he's also fighting a bigger wrestler, which if there's a style that size advantages help the most, it's wrestling. So that's another part on the list. Then, I mean, like I said, the list is endless. The reality is the UFC is trying to punk Nate. It's a hit, like Dan Hardy said, it's a hit piece on Nate. They're trying to take him out, tank his value because he's gone after this fight. This is the last fight on his contract. He wants to go start his promotion. He wants to go box Jake Paul or whatever, which he should because he's going to get millions of dollars for
Get paid.
It. But the UFC's like, but you built all your value with us. So that's technically our value too. So you don't get to leave with it. So we're going to have you fight this young killer who mauls you in front of everybody on pay-per-view as a main event, no non-title fight. And then it's fucking, it's disgusting, honestly. Like you expect shit like this from the shady organizations on the side, the fringe organizations, bare knuckle boxing, shit like that. This is what you expect from organizations like that, not the MLB or the NFL of fighting. You don't expect it out of the top dog. And then there's also the fact that Nate's unranked, right? He's unranked. He shouldn't be fighting anywhere near a title. He fought Leon Edwards, but that was a joke too. Meanwhile, Khamzat, if I'm Khamzat, I'm like, fuck this fight. I'm not taking this fight. I'm one fight away from the belt. I just beat Gilbert Burns at 170. I should be fighting Leon Edwards or Colby or whatever, but Colby's stuck with the lawsuit because it's just a shit show because the UFC refuses to manage the sport correctly now. And honestly, it's fucking disgusting. Watching them the way they do this, they do it to every single veteran. Every time they're like, oh, you did so much for us. We made a shit ton of money off of you. We're going to squeeze as much as we can out of you at the end and make sure that transfers over to somebody else. And that's what they're doing with this event. And it's hilarious that it all backfired and it ended up the correct way it should have been the whole time.
Yep. Yeah, now I don't know if it should have been Khamzat versus Kevin Holland.
Nope.
Right?
That's the sacrifice. That's the payment to the MMA gods to make sure this matchup happens correctly for Nate Diaz. And Tony.
Matt's probably just saying Nate did piss on the front lawn.
He did do that. And he did slap Dana White.
So funny.
That's classic, though. That was hilarious.
Imagine if Kevin Holland just happens to catch Khamzat.
Yeah.
Because Kevin Holland has some power. We've seen him. Yes.
Correct.
Imagine he just knocks him out. And what does that do now for the next golden boy that they were expecting there, right? And then all of a sudden we see Kevin Holland's rise. That'd be hilarious.
Well, it's funny because, I mean, the mind games, all this shit, it could happen. Especially, I don't know if you saw the weigh-ins, the show weigh-ins that they do. But Khamzat comes out and it's pure booze. And he goes to talk to Rogan, and Rogan's like, as soon as he starts talking, everybody boos him, and he's like uncomfortable with it. You could tell he's flustered. He starts going back to I'm Chechen gangster. I smash everyone. And you're like, what? Okay. And like it seems like he's trying to like hype himself. He seemed like you play into the mind games. It's all bullshit, right? But sometimes it's real. And if that's in the back of his mind, if that took him by surprise, like it looked like it did, and then you have Kevin Holland in there talking a bunch of shit to you, he might be like, "Fuck it, I'm swinging."
But it happens.
Dude. Oh, it happens.
You saw John Wei Lee when she said she walked out, she wasn't expecting to hear everybody booing, and it completely threw her off.
100%. Yeah,
threw her off.
It can happen.
So it can happen.
Yeah, it can happen. Is it far-fetched? Yeah, but it could happen. Um, and if he goes out there and tries to swing on Kevin Holland like he did with Gilbert Burns, uh, Kevin Holland's a sharpshooter, and he's long.
Black
So
belt in kung fu.
black belt in kung fu, stopping robberies, and I mean,
He's a
crazy things.
superhero.
He's a damn superhero, and Hamzat might be a super villain. What?
Oh, this was lined up perfectly, man.
Yeah.
This just worked out the way that it was supposed to work out. Ooh. So check this
Ooh.
out. If you were to think Tony or Nate was favored, who would you say?
I would lean towards Nate in this one.
Uh, right now, Bovada, Tony Ferguson favored -130. Nate
That's
plus
close.
110.
That's
Close.
close. Yeah.
It's close,
Um,
especially for MMA. If anybody doesn't go through and bet very often, anything that's like plus minus 150 around there, it's almost
yeah.
like a pick 'em, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's also like Nate was training for 5 rounds. Um, Tony wasn't. I like Nate at 170 against a striker more than I like Tony. Tony's not going to out wrestle him with shooting double legs and shit like that. I don't think, at least.
But he's a better break dancer.
Yeah, Math Prodigy's got Nate. Yeah, I mean, both their stock is gonna rise from this no matter what. I kind of hope Tony retires after this. To be honest, this
So do
is a
I.
perfect send off. This never happens. I was listening to the Jack Slack, the Boycast. Shout out Jack Slack, and he was talking about how it would be nice if Tony or if Nate, maybe if Hamzat blew his wad early and Nate rallied later and somehow got the win, but happy endings rarely happen in MMA. It's usually a downer. You usually end up like BJ Penn or things like that happen. Usually at the end
Unless you're Habib.
at the end of stories in MMA, it's usually bad. Yeah, unless it's Habib, it's usually bad. But this is a chance for Nate and Tony both to end with something pretty remarkable. The fact that this all came together, very cool.
And hey, I know you're saying the whole mind game thing being a little far fetched. If I would have told you 2 days ago, hey, Will, what if Tony Ferguson just ended up fighting Nate Diaz? Hamzat ended up fighting Kevin Holland, and D-Rod fought Li Jingliang, even though D-Rod weighs 10 pounds more. You'd be like, dude, that's far-fetched.
That is, and it happened.
That's a stretch. And it happened. Yeah. So you never know.
Yeah, you never know. George says, will this restructured card bring in more or less or lose pay-per-view buys? I think it will bring in more. Not only that, because
100%.
Not just because the card is better, it's better matchups. I mean, Kevin Holland versus Thompson is a pretty bad matchup, but all of this hype and drama got so many more people interested. Like you said, there's people reaching out to you who normally don't follow fighting.
That
are talking about this.
I'm telling you, I'm at work. My buddy Daniel, shout out Daniel, tells me, hey, this Bryce Mitchell guy missed weight, huh? Doesn't really pay very much attention to MMA. And I was like, no, dude, that's not what happened. Let me explain to you what happened. But again, people that usually aren't in the know wanted to be in the know because of all the drama that was going on. So how many more eyes are going to be on it now?
Yeah, exactly. I think it is going to go up. I think this is better for the event. It's better. It's a better event, and more people are going to be watching it. Let's see. Math Prodigy says ceremonial weigh-in had over 200,000 live viewers at the height of the broadcast.
Ooh.
Yeah, and the everybody talking about
Will,
this.
Have we reached that already on our podcast right now? Have we reached 200,000?
Right now we have 23 peak viewers right now on this live stream. So shout out to all 23 of you. Y'all are real.
Hey, shout out for sure. But all right, quick question, real quick.
Yeah.
Since we're playing this game a little bit, Hamzat or Kevin Holland? Easy, right?
Hamzat, yeah.
Favored minus 550, Kevin Holland plus 390. That's going to be the biggest differential in the entire card.
Yeah, makes sense. Hamzat was also the biggest favorite on the whole event. I think he was a minus 11,000 going into
1100.
1100. Okay, that makes
1100 minus 1100.
Fuck. Yeah.
No, yeah, he was minus 1100. And I know that because I just opened up sportsbook.ag and it still had the previous fights listed on there. Step your game up.
Not a sponsor.
Already updated, so not a sponsor. Not a sponsor.
George says the dig it means more pay-per-view money for Nate and Tony. I hope 100%. They all held the UFC absolutely hostage to make sure this event went through. I hope they're all getting paid so much, because the UFC, this is why this is so sweet to me, is the UFC tried to play these guys, Tony and Nate, so hard and so dirty. The fact that this blew up and ended up completely in their court, they could have destroyed this whole event. So now it's like the ball's totally in their court, and it's just such a reversal on the UFC, and that makes me so happy, because fuck the UFC.
100%.
I watch every fight, but fuck them.
Oh, hey, dude.
No.
Take it easy, huh?
No.
They keep us entertained every weekend.
I won't.
Omar says, blessing in disguise, or is it too late to generate some buzz? I think with the amount of news that's been going on, the amount of social media coverage on this, everybody's talking about it. I think that it was right in time to save what would have been a low-selling pay-per-view card. And that's with even having Nate Diaz headlining. And we all know that he has a huge following, but those true followers of Nate Diaz weren't having the matchup. There you go. Hey, represent, dude. I got it on here too. Represent.
And I was pissed going into this week. I was pissed, bro. I was like, "Fuck this. Fuck the UFC." It's just a shitty situation of people manipulating. We always talk about the fighter pay, manipulating fighters, but this is just straight up egregious, dude. Like Dan Hardy said, this is a straight up. They put a hit out on Nate Diaz, basically.
Yeah,
and it completely.
And Khamzat said that too.
Yeah, I mean, fuck that guy too.
Hey, take it easy.
No. Hey, Khamzat.
All right.
Delete my number. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, dude, that's serious.
That's
serious. Ooh. Hey, here we go. D-Rod or Li Jingliang?
Ooh. You're asking me who I think's gonna win, or what do I think the odds are?
What do you think the odds are? Who do you think's favored?
Trick question, because I think it's both the same answer, and I'm both picking D-Rod.
D-Rod minus 152. Li Jingliang plus 124. So again, very close.
Very close, yeah. But I mean, let's be real. He's got 10 pounds on him. Stylistically, I don't think it's a great matchup. Omar, hilarious, but we can't show it on the show.
Khamzat was never my friend, he said. So
Ruben says Madwell is the best, and George says delete my number. Will ain't playing, he's done.
That's what I'm saying. Once,
bro. Yeah.
once
how about this?
Delete my number. It's over.
This? Dana White. Delete my number.
Wait, hold on. Oh, God. We haven't even gotten press passes yet, dude.
Hey, we'll get them still.
You're already having them delete your number?
And you better believe that I will toe that company line if we go to press conferences. And I will ask the layup questions just like every other reporter that's in there.
Hey, Dana White. Hey, thanks so much for building this company from the ground up.
Yeah.
What's the next moves for the best marketing genius in the world?
Yeah. Are you going to start doing amateur cards to hit your ESPN quota so you don't have to pay them?
Oh, hilarious. Hey, you want... I like it. Do you want to just cover the rest of the card real quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
We have Irene Aldana versus Macy Chiasson.
Yeah, another catch weight fight, because weight cuts were an issue here. Probably should not be on the main card, but I got Probably Aldana in this one.
Yes, and we have Irene that is favored minus 175 over Chiasson, plus 147. Your boy, Johnny Walker versus Ian Cutelaba.
Yeah, this is either going to be a fantastic first round and an absolute snoozer in the second and third, or someone's getting knocked out in the first. Who says, I'm going to name my kids after you, Dana.
That's
just
hilarious.
Ground them, just perpetually ground them, and they were like, "Why?" It's like
for life. You remind me of Dana White.
You're Dana White. But yeah, I think I would say that Cutelaba is favored in this one. I think maybe people are starting to write off Johnny Walker.
Ian Cutelaba minus 210, Johnny Walker plus 170. Then we have Hakeem Dawodu.
Hey, how about this though?
Julian Erosa.
I was listening to Jack Slack again too. That Cutelaba fight, and he made a good point. This might be, I mean, it's far-fetched, right? But crazy things have happened. This might be, on paper, the highest probability of a draw ever.
Really?
You don't think so? Both of them gas out after the first round. Cutelaba is absolutely awful after the first round. He's a berserker in that first round, but if he doesn't get the finish, he is like he's in mud. Johnny Walker, same kind of deal. If he doesn't get that first knockout in the first 2 minutes, it's like, oh man. So I could see a straight up 10-8 beatdown from one of these guys in the first round and then just gash themselves out, and a real safe lay and pray approach for the second and third to even out that draw.
Hey, remember when he beat Serkinov and we're like, John Jones next?
Yeah.
Remember, like everybody's like, maybe
Yeah.
Johnny Walker versus John Jones, and
He's
now
a
we're
wild
like,
card.
can he beat Ian Cutelaba?
Yeah.
Dude, it's
Hey,
crazy how
that's how it goes when you go to
things turn.
SBG Ireland to train at, and you're a light
You
heavyweight.
leave Kavanaugh. Oh, I'm just kidding.
Name one light heavyweight that's a good sparring partner out of that
Hey,
camp.
tell Kavanaugh. Tell Kavanaugh lose your number. Ooh. All right. We have Mean Hakeem Dawodu versus Julian DeRosa.
Yeah, Dawodu missed weight. It's a bummer because I'm super high on him, but I got my boy Juicy J as a favorite stylistically. I think he's going to grind him out on the cage, and Dawodu is incapable of finishing fights. I think Erosa grist this one out.
Mean Hakeem Dawodu minus 220, Erosa plus 176.
Well, the odds usually favor the people who miss weight. Should have guessed that.
True. Before that, we also have Anton versus Almeida.
Yeah, this is another example of the UFC just being just absolutely the laziest with matchmaking. Jailton Almeida, who's an absolute killer and I think a title contender, is fighting a guy who is coming off the Contender Series where he didn't get a contract. Granted, it's a short notice fight. He's probably getting paid like $10,000 to get his ass beat by an absolute killer. This one's going to be pretty bad. I would say that if Khamzat isn't the biggest favorite on the card any longer, I would say it's Almeida. And if Khamzat, they're the top two, right? This has got to be absolutely insane odds for Almeida.
Minus 800 Almeida, plus 475.
Yeah.
For Anton.
Believe it or not,
that actually makes Almeida the largest favorite on the card.
Yeah, believe it or not, that's still pretty good odds. I would still bet on Almeida at those odds. It should be higher.
All right,
that's not going to go
well. Pickett versus Dennis.
Yeah, I would go ahead and say that Pickett's probably the favorite on this one.
Minus 130 compared to plus 110. Oh, dude, one of our favorites here, Chris Barnett versus Jake Collier.
Also missed weight. Did Barnett, becoming the second ever all-time UFC heavyweights to miss weight. But you give him a pass because he's been going through some really tough stuff in life. I would say that Chris Barnett is a pretty sizable favorite in this one.
Jake Collier minus 450, Barnett plus 330. Now, let me ask you this. Betting favorite for best breakdancer, Tony Ferguson or Chris Barnett?
You got to go with the boy Tony.
Chris Barnett minus 500. Not just so we also have Dumont versus Wolf.
Again, the UFC is just a fucking absolute shit show.
Daniel Wolf, 1-0, coming in 1-0.
Yeah, coming into this fight, 1-0, has had one professional fight. Tapology has 0 amateur fights, just 145, just the absolute.
Ranked in the U.S. West pound for pound, number 1,623 in her weight class.
You know what? Not bad.
If she beats Dumont, man, that's a big jump. One of the biggest jumps.
That's true.
I think you know who's favorite here. Norma Dumont minus 425. It's Daniel Wolf 310 plus 310.
I mean, that's ridiculous. I can't believe that's happening, bro.
We have Enheliger versus Alatang.
Yeah. I would say that I would think that Enheliger is probably the favorite, slight favorite.
Plus 135 for Enheliger. Alatang minus 165. Then you also have Melissa Martinez versus Elise Reed. I'll just read these off. Melissa Martinez minus 179, Elise Reed plus 144. Yeah. And then we have Lanus versus Weeks. Even.
Darian Weeks is someone that I think is going to be good and probably shouldn't be in the UFC yet. But what are you going to do? And that's it. It's going to be now an exciting card. Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. Nate versus Tony is just such a no-brainer.
It is. And you know what? The MMA gods thought so too.
They were like, enough. They
Enough's
looked at Dana
enough.
White. They looked at Dana White and they said, enough.
All right.
Shout
Hey,
out Math Prodigy. Haven't been in here before.
yes.
I appreciate it. Yeah, that was fun.
Thank you so much.
The impromptu.
George, Ruben, thank you so much for joining us. Omar as well. Like we say before, it's always so much fun whenever folks join us live so we can chat it up. And that's all I got. Cards tomorrow. We'll talk again on Sunday, Will?
Sunday morning. That'll be the good one. That's the recap, 9 a.m. Pacific. Yeah. See y'all then.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on a special episode of Story of the Fight.